She whispered, "Don't make a sound," and suddenly the air between us felt like it might break. That was the first time I realized how close we had gotten. Too close. The kind of closeness that makes your chest tighten, your hands restless, and your thoughts louder than any sound outside the door. I hadn't planned on being there that evening. It started simple. She had asked me to bring up a box from her garage, something she couldn't lift herself. She lived just 2 doors down, the kind of neighbor you wave to, but don't expect to know much about. But for me, she was impossible not to notice. Mid-40s, graceful in a way that comes only with time, yet carrying a heaviness in her eyes, as though life had taken more than it had given. I was in my early 20s, still figuring out who I was, never really believing someone like her would even look my way. And yet she did, more than once. Tonight, I could feel in the way her eyes lingered a second too long, or how her voice softened when she said my name. The house was too quiet when I stepped inside. She poured tea, though her hands trembled slightly as she set the cups down. I pretended not to notice, but the silence between us carried more weight than any words. I could smell her perfume, subtle, warm, the kind that stays in your clothes even after you leave. We sat across from each other, and I swear the distance felt unfair. Every time I looked up, her gaze would dart away as though she hadn't been staring. Every time her sleeve slipped back, I caught the faintest tremor in her fingers as she brushed her hair behind her ear. I tried to speak, something about work, about the weather, anything to keep the silence from pressing down too hard. But she only nodded, her lips parting as though she might answer, then closing again, leaving words trapped somewhere between her chest and her throat. There was something about the way she avoided finishing her sentences that made me lean in without meaning to. Like her pauses held more meaning than her words ever could. And then it happened. The sudden rattle of the front door handle. Her entire body went rigid, and in that instant, the atmosphere shifted from heavy to electric. She reached across the small space between us, her hand pressing lightly on my arm, her breath warm against my ear. "Don't make a sound," she whispered. The words weren't just about whoever was at the door. They carried something else. Fear, yes, but also intimacy, as if I had just been pulled into a secret that wasn't meant for anyone else. I froze, my heart pounding so loud I swore whoever was outside could hear it. Her fingers lingered on my arm longer than they should have, and though the danger of being discovered pressed hard against the walls of that room, I couldn't ignore the other truth rising between us. That maybe, just maybe, we both wanted this closeness more than we were willing to admit. The handle rattled again, harder this time. My eyes shot to hers, and in that moment, everything felt suspended, the air, the silence, the choice we would have to make. And then, a phone buzzed loudly on the table, the screen lighting up with a name I didn't recognize. Her gaze locked with mine. Neither of us moved. The tea had gone cold, but my skin burned. The buzzing of her phone finally stopped, leaving only the echo of silence and the faint hum of my own heartbeat in my ears. She didn't move to pick it up. Her eyes lingered on the glowing screen for just a second too long, then drifted back to me as if she were weighing something she couldn't say out loud. I wanted to ask who it was. I wanted to know why the sound of it made her jaw tighten, why her hand on my arm had trembled, not from fear but from something deeper. But I stayed quiet. Questions felt dangerous here, and I wasn't sure if I wanted the answers. She stood up slowly, wrapping her arms around herself like she needed the protection. For the first time, I noticed the way her sweater hung loose, like it belonged to another life, another person who wasn't here anymore. "My husband used to hate that ringtone," she said suddenly, voice quiet, almost brittle. I froze. The word husband stuck in my throat like a stone. I hadn't even known. Maybe I hadn't wanted to know. "He's not here anymore." She caught herself, swallowing down the weight of those words. But sometimes the world doesn't let you forget what you've lost. Her gaze dropped to the floor, and for a second I saw her, not as the woman who intimidated me with her poise, or the neighbor who always seemed just out of reach, but as someone who carried loneliness in every corner of her life. And maybe that was why I couldn't stop looking at her. Because I knew something about loneliness, too. I shifted, trying to mask the way her confession twisted inside me. I've never been good at forgetting either, I admitted, my voice quieter than I meant it to be. Her eyes lifted to mine. Curious. Searching. I was with someone once, I continued. We were young. She left, and I told myself I didn't care. But I still catch myself looking for her in the crowd sometimes. It was the most I'd ever said about it to anyone, and I wasn't even sure why I was saying it now. Maybe because her silence had given me permission. Maybe because she made it feel like speaking wouldn't make me weak. For a moment, we just stood there, facing each other in that too-quiet house, surrounded by ghosts neither of us could name. It's not fair, she said, almost whispering. The way time makes you forget faces but not feelings. The words settled between us like smoke, impossible to grasp, but impossible to ignore. I didn't think. I just reached out, my fingers brushing against hers where they hung at her side. The touch was small, almost nothing, but it carried every unsaid thought we'd both been choking down since the door rattled earlier. She didn't pull away. Instead, she looked at me, really looked at me, and the silence that followed wasn't heavy anymore. It was full of something neither of us could name yet, but both of us knew was already too late to turn away from. Her fingers lingered against mine, and for a heartbeat, it felt like the world had narrowed to just that one point of contact. Then a sharp knock on the door jolted us both back. She froze. Her breath caught, and the faintest panic flashed in her eyes. Without thinking, she whispered, "Don't move." The knock came again, firmer this time. My chest tightened. Whoever it was, they weren't going away. She pulled her hand from mine, wrapping her arms tightly around herself. Her voice was low, urgent. It might be my sister, or... She stopped, leaving the word unfinished. But I didn't need her to say it. Or her husband. A flush of guilt shot through me. My stomach turned at the thought. What were we doing? What was I doing? Another knock. Then silence. We both waited, holding our breath, listening. After a moment, footsteps retreated down the hall, fading until there was nothing. Relief washed over me, but it was tangled with something else. Fear, desire, shame, all knotted together. She turned back toward me, her face pale, but her eyes said something different. Something dangerous. "You should go," she said, but her voice betrayed her. It cracked, soft, like the words themselves didn't want to leave her mouth. "I don't want to." The words slipped out before I could stop them. Her lips parted slightly, and for one unbearable second, we just stood there, close enough to see the way her chest rose and fell, close enough to taste the hesitation between us. I leaned in just a little, close enough to catch the faint scent of her perfume, close enough that my lips nearly brushed hers. Then she stepped back, abruptly, her hands trembling as she pressed them to her sides. "This is wrong," she whispered. "You're too young." She trailed off, shaking her head. "I can't." The rejection stung, but beneath it, I caught the way her eyes darted to my mouth, the way her body leaned forward even as her words pushed me back. "You don't believe that," I said softly. "If you did, you wouldn't still be standing here." Her silence said everything. The room felt too small, the air too heavy. Every sound, the creak of the floor, the hum of the refrigerator, even our breathing, was magnified. Then her phone buzzed again. She flinched, reaching for it this time. The name glowing on the screen made her hand tremble so badly she nearly dropped it. I caught a glimpse before she turned it over. A man's name. Her husband. Her eyes met mine wide, pleading, "Please don't make this harder." But it was already too late, because the truth hung between us, undeniable. We wanted each other, and no matter how much she tried to bury it, I could see it in every stolen glance, every unfinished sentence. The more we tried to resist, the closer we were pulled. And I didn't know how much longer either of us could fight it. Her phone was still face down on the table, buzzing once more before finally going silent. She stared at it as if it were a loaded gun, then pushed it farther away. I couldn't stop watching her hands, how they trembled when she set the glass down, how quickly she hid them in her lap. "You should answer," I said quietly, though every part of me wanted her to leave it there. Her eyes darted up to mine. "And say what?" "That I'm busy." Her voice cracked, frustration spilling through. "Busy with you?" The words stung, but they also ignited something I couldn't hold back anymore. "You make it sound like I'm some mistake," I shot back, my voice sharper than I intended. "But you're the one who opened the door, who asked me to stay, who poured the wine. Don't put this all on me." She recoiled slightly, lips pressing together. Her silence only made the air heavier. I ran a hand through my hair, pacing. "You keep telling me this is wrong, that I should leave, but every time I try, you look at me like I stopped, chest rising and falling too fast. Like you need me here." Her breath hitched. For a long moment, she just sat there, shoulders tense, jaw tight. Then, finally, she whispered, "You don't understand what I stand to lose." The confession wasn't loud, but it cracked through the air like thunder. "Then explain it to me." I pressed. My voice softened. "Please, because all I see is you sitting across from me, pretending this isn't killing you too." Her hand twitched on the table, almost reaching for mine, but pulling back just before contact. That hesitation, God, it nearly broke me. I leaned closer. "I think about you all the time. I can't turn it off. I've tried, but I can't." Her eyes filled, not with tears, but with something more dangerous: desire, fear, longing tangled together. She shook her head, whispering stop. But she didn't move away. The space between us felt electric, unbearable. My heart pounded so loudly it drowned out everything else. "You don't want me to stop," I murmured. That did it. She pushed back her chair, standing so abruptly it screeched across the floor. "Don't do this to me." Her voice was raw now, torn between anger and desperation. "Don't make me admit," she broke off, biting her lip hard enough to draw blood. I stood too, close enough now to feel her breath. "Admit what?" Her eyes flicked down to my mouth, then back to my eyes. For a heartbeat, she didn't breathe. "Admit that I want this," she whispered, so faintly I almost didn't hear. The words hung there, fragile and irreversible. My hand lifted, almost of its own accord, brushing against her arm. She didn't flinch. She didn't move. The world held still, until suddenly footsteps echoed in the hall outside. We froze, and the footsteps grew louder, steady, deliberate. My chest tightened, every muscle braced for the door to swing open. But instead, the sound stopped just outside. We didn't breathe. Not until the shadow under the door shifted and slowly retreated down the hall. Only then did she let out a trembling exhale, pressing a hand to her chest. "Who was that?" I whispered, barely trusting my own voice. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she walked to the window, pulling the curtain back just an inch. When she turned, her face was pale. "My husband isn't supposed to be home until Friday," she said. The words hit me harder than I expected. I'd known, somewhere deep down, that there was more she hadn't told me. But hearing it out loud, hearing the word husband, knocked the air from my lungs. "You said you were separated?" I muttered, more accusation than question. Her eyes closed, pained. "I told you what I needed to, so I could feel something again." The honesty stung worse than a lie. "So I was just, what? A distraction?" My voice cracked, sharper than I wanted. "Someone to keep you from feeling empty?" She turned, fierce now, her voice breaking. "Don't you dare say that. Don't you think for a second that this isn't real for me. I haven't let anyone this close in years. But he's still here. He still has a claim on me, on this house, on everything." The words slammed into me with equal parts fury and longing. I wanted to leave, to protect whatever pride I had left. But my feet wouldn't move. "You should have told me," I said softly, my throat tight. Her hands shook as she pressed them against the table. If I had, would you have stayed? Would you have sat here with me, night after night, pretending we weren't crossing a line we can't uncross? The silence that followed was heavier than any shouting could have been. She stepped closer, her eyes wet now, her voice raw. I lied because I wanted this. I wanted you, even if it's wrong, even if it destroys everything else. The confession cut through the last of my defenses. But before I could respond, the silence was shattered by a knock, firm, unmistakable at the door. She went rigid, eyes wide, blood draining from her face. "Who?" I started, but she raised a trembling finger to her lips. The knock came again. Louder. She whispered, barely audible, "It's him." My heart plummeted. Everything we thought was hidden, everything we thought was safe, suddenly wasn't. The walls closed in, the air too thin, the wine glass still half full on the table like some cruel reminder of where this started. And in that moment, one thought echoed in my head, unrelenting. We've already gone too far to turn back. In that silence, we both knew whatever happened next, we couldn't go back. The knock shook through the walls, louder this time, demanding. My pulse hammered, but not out of fear. It was the weight of the decision pressing in, crushing. She froze, her eyes fixed on the door, as though staring hard enough could keep it shut. Her hand reached for mine without thinking, fingers trembling as they laced with mine. "Don't answer," I whispered. Her chest rose and fell too quickly. "If I don't, he'll know. He'll keep coming." "Then let him," I said, voice low, almost desperate. She turned, eyes glassy, pain written across her face. "You don't understand. He's my past, but he's also my prison. And if he sees you here—" She trailed off, the words strangled. Another knock. Harder. Something snapped inside me. I stood, pulling her closer, forcing her to look at me. I can't keep pretending I'm just a guest. I can't keep sneaking around like some shameful secret. My throat burned as the words spilled out. I want you. Not stolen moments, not whispers in the dark. You. Her lips parted, trembling, as if she wanted to argue, but couldn't. Instead, tears slipped silently down her cheeks. "You're too young," she whispered finally, the same shield she'd used before, though it sounded thinner now. "You don't know what you're giving up." I shook my head. "I know exactly what I'm choosing. I'm choosing this." I lifted our joined hands, pressing her knuckles to my lips. "Even if it breaks me, even if it costs everything else." Her breath hitched. She looked at me like she was seeing something she didn't believe she deserved. The pounding at the door came again, but her body didn't flinch this time. She stayed locked in my gaze, her chest rising unevenly, her free hand brushing my face in the gentlest, most fragile motion I'd ever felt. "If I open that door," she said, voice quivering, "he'll walk back into my life like he owns it. Like he owns me. But if I don't, then you're free," I whispered. The silence between us stretched, electric, breaking under the weight of all the things we hadn't said. Finally, she closed her eyes, leaning her forehead against mine. Her voice cracked, barely audible. "Then I choose you." The world seemed to still, even as the pounding continued, relentless. Her arms slid around me, clinging like she was anchoring herself against the storm. And for the first time, she wasn't hiding. For the first time, it wasn't shame or secrecy. It was raw, unguarded truth. The knocking stopped. The sudden quiet was more terrifying than the sound itself. We didn't move, didn't breathe. Was he gone? Or waiting? I didn't know. But in that moment, it didn't matter. Because she had chosen, and so had I. The silence after the knocking faded felt almost unreal, like the air itself was waiting for us to decide what came next. Her head was still resting against mine, her breath shaky, but steadier now. I could feel the warmth of her hand in mine, the way her grip no longer trembled. She pulled back slowly, her eyes searching mine as if looking for an answer I didn't even know I had. "I've been living half a life," she admitted, her voice rough, breaking with years of weight. Always too afraid to step out of line, too afraid of being judged, too afraid of what I'd lose. She paused, her thumb brushing over my skin. But tonight, I can't go back. I swallowed hard, my chest tight, because I knew exactly what she meant. This wasn't about a single choice. It was about tearing down walls she had spent years building. I don't want to hide anymore, I said softly. Not from him, not from anyone. If we're going to do this, it has to be real. Her lips curved into something between a smile and a sob, the kind of expression that carried both fear and hope. Then it will be real, she whispered. The sound of footsteps retreated down the hallway outside, fading until there was only the hum of silence between us. For the first time, the quiet didn't feel threatening. It felt like space, room to breathe, room to exist without fear. We sat down on the edge of the couch, neither of us letting go of the other's hand. The wine glass on the table still shimmered in the soft light, untouched for what felt like hours. She picked it up, staring at the red liquid, then set it back down with a small laugh. You came here for a quiet evening, not for this. I shook my head, smiling despite the storm we'd just lived through. This is exactly what I came for, even if I didn't know it. She looked at me, really looked at me, with eyes that carried years of longing she had kept buried. And I knew in that moment, the age difference, the risks, the judgment from others, none of it mattered. Not compared to the way she made me feel seen in a way no one else ever had. Her hand slid up to my cheek, fingertips trembling but sure. I don't know what tomorrow will look like, she admitted. But tonight, I'm choosing to begin again. And just like that, all the fear, all the secrecy, all the endless second-guessing dissolved into something simpler, something truer. We leaned closer, breaths mingling, the unspoken promise between us stronger than any words. Tomorrow could wait. The world outside could wait. For now, it was just us, two souls finally unafraid to stand in the same light.